Tēnā koutou katoa, kia ora ana koutou katoa, kia ora, hello, and welcome to the first series of my podcast, Manawa Matters. This is where we discuss those things that are closest to our hearts. Life matters, health matters, heart matters, the highs, the lows, how we survived, and of course, some laughs along the way. For the first series of Manawa Matters, I'm sharing my struggles with a major heart condition, the long journey to becoming healthy, and my fight to be 100% medication-free today. I hope you might find something that'll help you to make better choices for yourself than I did, to be proactive about your health, and to encourage you to value yourself worthy enough to be your own champion. Aroha nui kia koutou katoa. Big love to you all. Thank you for listening.
Kia ora. Ka nui te mihi e hoa. He tino kaupapa me te kōrero e noia nei. Ko koe te rākau, ei. Ko wai koe?
No, tēnā koe e hoa. Ko tēnei taku pepeha i te taha o tōku māma. E tū ana hau i tōku maunga o hikurangi. Ka titiro whakararo i tōku awa o Waiapu. E rere kau ana ki te moana o te tai rāwhiti. Kei reira tōku waka o horauta e tau ana. Ka huri tōku mata ki tōku marae o mga hānea. Ko te wāhi i nōhia ai e oku tipuna. Ko hine tāpura te tangata. Nāna nei i te hapū o te whānau o hine tāpura i taurima. Hei whakaruru hau i a Ngāti Porou. Ko Paula Bishop tōku ingoa i tipu ake ana hau ki te awa kairangi ki tai. Engari, no te tairāwhiti ahau. Tēnā koe e hoa, ka nui te mihi ki a koe. Nō reira tēnā koe.
Ka nui te mihi ki a koe. I'm at an advantage because I do know you and I know that we're going to be talking through your journey. But I think when we start at the beginning, sometimes it's important to say, you know, who do you think Paula, the Paula that I know, where is she now in terms of the journey that she's taken?
Yeah, she's a lot different. Like, we're 54 now, but having gone through what I've gone through, yeah, I've definitely re-emerged as something new. I think when you've been given a diagnosis where, you know, it's serious and it's a major condition, that you certainly take stock, but there's a whole lot of things that you go through in terms of how you got there and who you blame and the shame of all of that. And finding out about it is bad enough because you literally go into denial. Well, I did.
So let's step through what that journey was, but I know we're going to start at 2018 because that was the moment in time. So talk to me about that Paula in 2018 and where she was.
Yeah, I've had a lot of time to think about it because, you know, I was really, really sick and I was normalising my pain. So I actually was just doing the normal, which is just get on with it. I mean, you still got your eyes open and you're still walking around, so you must be okay. Pretty blasé about the state of my health. And I'm not just talking physically, actually, just not even taking any account for my mental well-being. My physical well-being was really, there was none. Right. And I was just ignoring it and just getting on with it. But I think the ignorance really comes from normalising your pain so that you can just get on with it. And I think we do a lot of that as we were growing up. When you take on a lot of responsibility, whether it's for your family or in your work, you tend to just keep going, get it done. And that was a lot of what I was like at that stage. But also what I do know now it's not just the fact that I had to get physically well. I actually had to make sure that I wasn't going to be repeating that behaviour. And so I had to really confront myself about what kind of behaviour had been going on. I mean, I laugh about it now, but it's not funny, you know. And I think I was growing up watching that as I was growing up, you know, the adults that were around me, especially the wahine. And that's where we learned to sort of like shoulder it all, just get it done, take care of everybody.
Ai, kei te tika.
Ai, but at the sacrifice of myself.
Ai, we talk about this type of programming that we kind of receive. We're watching our, you know, our mums, our grandmothers, our aunties. And I know that you were always busy, always somebody that was, you know, playing netball, all of those things. And I guess in a way that's a long way away from where you used to be.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. When I was growing up, I was always constantly busy. Just like everyone else, our parents were busy working, so your job was to do whatever it was that, you know, if you had younger siblings, you were watching out for them. But also, all credit to my mum and my dad. They had us involved in things outside of school, outside of whānau, extracurricular. We were dancers, and we danced all the way up until I was 18. We were sports people, so we were playing netball at all different levels. So we were always really, really busy. There was no time to get up to mischief. And I wasn't really a mischief kind of kid because we were just too busy. And also I think what I learnt that level of responsibility from my parents is that, no, we haven't got time for that muck around. And it was like that. We don't have time for you to be mucking around, you know. Get it done. Get it done now. So sort of growing up in that, when I became a parent, I too was trying to roll that out to my own child. It's just that I think she had it a lot harder because there was only one of her, you know, no one to share that burden with, of parents who wanted to invest their time in you.
I hear you. So we know Paula from the past, and then we come to Paula in 2018. Tell me about that day that things changed for you.
Yeah, well, in between the time from, you know, when I was younger and then you're growing up, you're getting your job and making your own way in the world, then you meet someone, then you have a family, and then it's all about, oh, well, let's make some money and make sure that we've got everything that we need to have. But in that, I actually never thought that any of my behaviour was detrimental, was a contributing factor to me being unwell. And because me being unwell actually just crept up. It slowly crept up. So that's why I think I normalised, and I don't think I'm the only one who does that, but that's why it became like a normal every day.
I know that you were on a breathing machine at one point.
Yeah.
I know that you talked about struggling to walk up steps.
Yeah. On top of that, I was actually incredibly overweight. And so, like, when something would happen to me and I'd have a sore whatever, or I couldn't breathe, I just didn't want to go to the doctors and have them say to me, hey, well, obviously you're overweight, you know, so what do you expect? And that whole kōrero from doctors, and I'm not putting down the doctors because I think that's a learned behaviour as well. They are actually dealing with Māori people all the time. And some people want to be helped and some people just want a pill. They just want a medication. They don't want to hear about, you know, all the steps that I need to take to make me extra healthy, or come and be told again that you're overweight or you're outside the BMI, which really is just, it's just bullshit. It doesn't work, that type of kōrero, you know. Medical professionals talking at you like you're too dumb to know that you're overweight.
Yeah. I know too that we haven't included this, but you were living in Australia as well, and I know for Māori, you know, we do find it tough being in those places with doctors. You know, just somebody's looking at our mamae, but they're not necessarily looking at all the other parts of ourselves.
Aye. And I wasn't either. I wasn't looking at all those other parts that make up the bigger, you know, that make up the bigger illness. Right? I was like keeping them compartmentalised, basically. Just say, oh, I've got a sore leg. Oh, I can't breathe when I go upstairs. And not a lot of stairs, just 3 to 5 stairs. right? And being absolutely breathless. Other things that I got tested for that I just ignored. I knew as long as I went to go and get them tested, I thought, oh, yeah, well, we've dealt with that. Let's move on.
Yeah.
You know?
What were those things?
So, like, for example, I often felt that there was something in my throat. Like, it would swell up and I couldn't swallow. But it wouldn't flare up all the time. It would only flare up now and again. Now, if I put a microscope on the times when it did flare up, it probably was that I was running low anyway, that I was actually not well, or there was the onset of something coming, whether it be viral or whatever it was. But all these little things that actually ended up being bigger things, especially after, you know, I was diagnosed with a heart problem. Yeah, with a heart issue. So my behaviour up until that point was basically zero level of self-care. Also, I was living a life where I know now that I was incredibly unhappy, but I was not taking any notice of it. I was literally looking for anything else as a distraction so that I'd be too busy to deal with it. So that I'd be telling myself or trying to convince myself that, oh, I have to go over here and help someone else.
Yeah, and you have always been a person that's helped. I mean, that's a quality that I've seen in you, and you know, when we met when we were children, that's always been the way. But I suppose in a way what you're saying is it became something to hide behind.
Yeah, it became a hiding place for me, because it literally became like, oh no, I'm too busy, I've got to go over here and help, and oh, this person's fallen over, or oh, we have to fly home, or, you know, we have to awhi this whānau, and a lot of the times, I mean, I hate to say it, but I mean, it's the truth, really. A lot of the times, no one was actually asking me for that help. At times, I was thinking, hey, I'm being proactive. I'll do some of the thinking for you. You need this, you need this. And they may have only just said, hey, I've got a headache. And then I'm like, you know, trying to put the whole care package in place for them. And I couldn't even put that in place for myself. You know, anything to distract me from what was going on in my life that I wasn't happy about. And that is outside of physically how I was feeling. It's just that in the end, when you're trying to hide from that sort of stuff, or not being accountable or truthful to the way that you're actually treating yourself, your mamai manifests itself the way it's going to show up.
Does whakamā have a place in this kōrero as well? That shame of...
Absolutely it does. Absolutely. By that stage, I felt shameful if I couldn't do any of these things. And I felt, what are they going to think about me? Or they won't love me enough. Hey, they won't love me.
Right.
After having a diagnosis, that was the last thing that I could think about. And I hadn't realised that that was actually so important to me that I would run myself into the ground over it.
Aye.
And sacrifice myself when there was no need to do it. All I was doing was running away from my own pain. And you think about it, I mean, you physically can't run away from yourself. You physically just can't do it. But you try, whether it's an addiction to alcohol, whether it's, you know, oh, I've got to be busy, so that I don't have to look at my problems. So I will get into that, but I do want to talk about in 2018 when I was diagnosed, because this is actually what was going on. And whether I was aware of it or not, that's the state of play that I was in. So even in, my career, I don't know whether it's because, there was less for me to do on the home front because my child was getting older. My husband was busy with his mahi, and all of a sudden there was room for me to sort of right, time for me to invest in, let's climb the corporate ladder. And that became really, I was driven towards achieving that. Whatever that success in my mind looked like, that's what I was driving towards. And yes, I did get there, but all that did was make me work longer hours and harder and give me even more hiding places to be.
But you were actually really successful. I mean, that's the other thing to put over the top of this, is that things weren't failing. One thing was failing, and that was your health and your ability to be in charge of your whole order in the way that you are now. But, you know, your husband was doing well, you were doing well, your daughter was doing well, you were actually supporting your whānau. So, you know, that type of story we can all see ourselves in. You know, that's why it can be a place for us to hide. Which I kind of see as a real theme to come through, because we are hiding in plain sight. We all have lots and lots of calls upon us and whānau to go and do things, to turn up to tangihanga, and that's what you were doing. You were coming backwards and forwards. I know I only ever saw you then. So it's just that lifestyle, but you were successful. You were nailing it. Outwardly.
Yeah, so that gave me, a place to hide. And yes, I was really successful at it, being elevated to go up to the next level of management and do that sort of thing and look after people. The other thing is that people would want to work for me. But that was at the beginning. That was before I really started getting sick, because the sicker I got and the more I was masking it, I don't want to say the worse I got in terms of a person, but I was actually becoming a worse person. I couldn't care for myself, so how could I then look after people that were reporting to me in a genuine way, right? And the more unwell I got, bearing in mind that I was in denial that I was unwell, you know, the worse that I got in terms of, I feel like I could have been a better manager in terms of looking after people. But I started off on the right foot. But by the time I got worse and worse, and I didn't know I was that bad in terms of health, that mawiri rolled out to other people.
And your father was very unwell.
Yes, he was. He did have a heart condition. Our conditions were not the same. And it was not hereditary. My way of helping at that stage, because I had a very unhealthy mindset around weight, because this is all the stuff that we grow up with and the messages that we end up carrying into our adulthood, was, you know, the same old thing that you're listening to when you are talking to health professionals, is that, well, you're overweight, you have to lose weight. Get on a diet, do this, and then you'll feel better, da-da-da-da. And that's fine. But it's not workable for everyone. We can't keep being told off that we're this way and this way and this way. It doesn't work, that type of kōrero. And I don't know why we haven't got our heads around that. You have to speak to it differently. You know, if you want to be here independently healthy and looking after yourself and be able to skippy-doo-dah through the rest of your life rather than limping through it, which is what I was doing, it's that kōrero that we need to hear. Most of us need that type of kōrero because, you know, when you're being told off, that's what it feels like. And when you're an adult, you're like, no, I'm not going to listen to you. Who are you? No.
And especially when outwardly you're ticking all of the boxes that we're kind of told are, you know, the achievements. We're showing up, we're part of our whānau, we're doing well at mahi, you know, we're a good wife and mother, we're a good daughter, we're a good friend, you know, we're taking care of others. Why is that not enough?
Or why do we think that that's all there is to be, right? Is that the be-all, end-all? No, it wasn't. For me, the shattering thing for me is that after I was diagnosed with a heart problem, then I knew that I had to start unpicking this stuff or else I was just going to carry on with the same behaviour, with the same mindset. I literally had to dig into why I didn't like myself enough to look after myself. Why didn't I love myself enough to
put yourself first?
To be kind to myself, right? I had no kindness for me. And that's very confronting because then you have to go, well, where did that come from? How come you could just bash yourself around and go without sleep. And it's unhealthy because you want to help people. But in order to do that, my way of doing that was like, no, I don't need to have any sleep. I'll go and do this and then I'll go and do that. And even when I was going to sleep, I wasn't sleeping. My mind was racing. And that tells you how unkind I was being to myself. Because my body was giving me all the signs. It was screaming out to me saying, hey, you're stressed out. Hey, your blood pressure is rising. Hey, sometimes you've got heart palpitations. You can't breathe when you're going upstairs. Hey.
But you were able to normalise all those things.
Aye.
And ka piki te haringa of your mawiwiness.
Yeah. See, normalising that.
You think that you've seen that in others, in us as Māori, as people around you?
I think, definitely as people around me, especially, once I had to really start looking at myself, then I was like, well, where did you get that from? I'm not looking to blame anyone. Let me put that out there first. Like, I'm not blaming anybody because I had beautiful wahine toa, aunties, mother, nannies, and a beautiful kurawa, and they did these things, but I think they had more balance than me, and I just feel like I went to the extreme. Yeah, to the extreme of that. I don't regret any of the upbringing that I've had, because that was also, I was surrounded by a lot of aroha, and it's beautiful being part of a big whānau. But then, the flip side of that is that, this is what you do. You run around and you self-sacrifice, and you don't think you're doing that because it's what you've seen. Because that behaviour's been normalised to a certain extent.
Or a part of what you've seen. As you say, the word that you used was balance.
Yeah, I had no balance. That'd be right. I have no balance. Because that's what it ended up being. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been sick, right? Aye.
Right.
So that's the state of play, where I was at. This is what was going on in my life. Yes, admittedly, I was physically unwell, and you have to look at my mental state of mind as well to be able to sacrifice yourself that way and tell yourself it's okay, that's normal, get on with it. And yes, I was very successful in my career, but it did give me more places to hide until it wasn't there anymore.
What about your wairua, do you think? Because we've talked about whakapapa and tinana and hangingaro. Where do you think that your wairua was in this? Or was that not something that you were feeling into?
Yeah, I can look at it now. It's all in retrospect, because I wasn't doing anything proactively good for myself. So everything is in retrospect when I was trying to help myself get better. But yeah, I would have to say that's why at times I'd feel so empty. And I think that comes from years of carrying your pain and carrying your trauma and not really healing from it, not doing anything about it. Also not having the tools to know that you do need to do something about it, and blaming others for my unhappiness. Why don't you love me enough, right? Why am I not enough? All that sort of thing, which I wasn't really saying too loudly to myself, because nobody wants to have that kōrero and realise that you don't find yourself worthy, because then that opens all the other questions around why don't you find yourself worthy. And if you're not able to handle that conversation, then that conversation won't happen.
Right.
It just won't. In my experience, it didn't happen. Too much hurt. And who's got time for that anyway? Digging into that treasure trove of my mind. Until I had to. I was forced to. By my own body. By my own tinana. So in 2018, when I did get diagnosed with atrial fibrillation, which is a heart condition that I'd never heard of before, that was my tinana saying, no, you're not listening. We gave you all these warning signs, right? All these things I've been talking about, the breathlessness, all of that. We gave you all these warning signs and you haven't done anything about it. Now we're going to take over. You're fired. and now we're going to let you feel the pain.
So what happened?
Yeah, that's when my heart started falling apart. So when I was back here for the weekend, because we had been living in Sydney for many years at that point, came home for a whānau celebration and fell sick. Literally was only going to be here for 3 days. Fly in, fly out, have a good time, have a laugh, have a party, and then back home. I arrived and then I actually was really sick and I thought it was a virus because here we go again. Yes, you're a qualified doctor, which you're not, but trying to self-diagnose what was wrong with me. It was actually the sickest I'd ever been. I was thinking this virus is really hard out. Anyway, so I ended up down at the A&E at Kenepuru and saw this doctor. I'm really grateful for her actually. After I saw her, I just thought, wow, you picked that up just off the stethoscope. And I'm thinking, wow, she's amazing. And she was amazing. But the reality is that I was actually that sick. That's why she was able to pick it up so easily, because it was goddamn obvious. It was obvious.
To everyone but you. And you were alone in that hospital room at the time, weren't you?
Yeah, so when I went in, I went with my husband, and that was Kei Te Pai, but he stayed out in reception because we thought, oh, this is going to be a 5-minute job. She's just going to give me some pills and then I'm out of there. Let's just tick the box so that I know it's nothing worse. Yeah, and so I went in alone. And little did we know that it was going to be so much worse than what we thought. We weren't expecting it. I definitely wasn't prepared for it. And all she's saying to me is, oh, I'll just check your, do your normal check. I'll check your vitals because, she hasn't got any history for me. And I'm saying to her, oh, it's a virus, trying to tell the doctor how to do her job. And then she goes, I think we need to put you on the ECG. And I'm like, ECG? ECG? Isn't that to do with the heart? That's not what she means, right? But yeah, that's what she meant. But I was so sick, I just didn't even want to, I just like, yeah, whatever, just do whatever you're doing. I just want to get out of here. So I could get my eyelashes done for the party. Ridiculous. Still thinking of all the other stuff I've got to do in this day. Meaning, I've only carved out 20 minutes for myself, so you can tell me what's wrong and give me some medication. Anyway, she put me on there, they took blood work, and next minute I'm actually in with her for the next 40 minutes. It wasn't dawning on me that anything serious was happening. I was just too maw'iwi, I was sick. After all that anyway, then she tells me, hey, you actually have a heart condition, and it's called atrial fibrillation.
So not hereditary?
Not hereditary. And actually I was later to find out a bit more about it because, of course, then you start looking at your illness after, trying to understand what it does and how did I get it and all those other questions, and then realising actually a lot of people get atrial fibrillation.
Kia ora e te whānau. Thanks for listening to Manawa Matters. Well, that's a lot to digest in the first episode, so let's take a break before I tackle the next kōrero. When you think you know it all, learning the hard way.